Welcome everyone to 30 Minute Theology. I am Olu Ashako, and today we will be going over the 12th book of Judges, closing out our What Did You Say series with part 3. Within the previous portions of this series, we talked about Jephthah, and we're going to bring his story to a close today. Ask that you would please like, subscribe, and share this with someone, and let's jump in. Then the people of Ephraim mobilized an army and crossed over the Jordan River to Zaphon. They sent this message to Jephthah: "Why didn't you call for us to help you fight against the Ammonites? We're going to burn down your house with you in it." Jephthah replied, "I summoned you at the beginning of the dispute, but you refused to come. You failed to help us in our struggle against Ammon. So when I realized you weren't coming, I risked my life and went into battle without you, and the Lord gave me victory over the Ammonites. So why have you come to fight me?" There's so much in these three little scriptures. One, Ephraim was mad because they say that they weren't called to battle, even though Jephthah said, "I did call you to battle. You just refused to go." So now you're mad. Now you're upset. Why are you upset and trying to fight people about fighting? Like, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Well, when you look at what war does, because war to this day is an engine of profit. Money is made in war. Money is made by getting the things that other people had. Money is made by gaining the land and the natural resources from it. Money is gained and generated by going to war. Now that the war was settled, Ephraim wants to fight. So are you looking to fight now because they got stuff and they're easy pickings because they just got done fighting? And why are you fighting your own people? You should be supporting your people, not trying to fight them. But that's what Ephraim was doing. Reminds me of like a cops show or something where the criminal is nabbed and they're fighting and tussling and "Take your hands off of me, get off of me." It's like, no, you're a criminal. My hands are supposed to be on you because I need to put you where you belong, which is in jail. So why are you fighting and acting ignorant? It's really immature and irresponsible. And it reminds me of something that I heard on a podcast recently, and I shared it with a number of people. It said that there are three kinds of people: wise, foolish, and evil. The wise are humble, they're teachable, they're always getting better. Fools, they respond to correction or anything with blame and attack. Now, Ephraim somewhat sounds like a fool in this case, but we still have evil. And when you look at what their motives were, it puts them in that category. Evil people are those who seek to be destructive, and that's what Ephraim was going to do. They were going to destroy their own people for their gain. Now, they did play the fool in the sense of saying, you didn't call us to attack, so now we're attacking you, which again makes no sense whatsoever. Because you didn't include me in the fight, now I'm going to fight you. But again, they were seeking to destroy Ephraim and gain the things that Ephraim had. Let's continue. The people of Ephraim responded, "You men of Gilead are nothing more than fugitives from Ephraim and Manasseh." So Jephthah gathered all the men of Gilead and attacked the men of Ephraim and defeated them. Jephthah captured the shallow crossings of the Jordan River, and whenever a fugitive of Ephraim tried to go back across, the men of Gilead would challenge him. "Are you a member of the tribe of Ephraim?" they would ask. If the man said, "No, I'm not," they would tell him to say Shibboleth. If he were from Ephraim, he would say Sibboleth, because people from Ephraim cannot pronounce the word correctly. Then they would take him and kill him at the shallow crossings of the Jordan. In all, 42,000 Ephraimites were killed at that time. Jephthah judged Israel for 6 years. When he died, he was buried in one of the towns of Gilead. So Ephraim got even further upset about not going to fight. And then they resort to name calling. It's so important to watch what you say, which is the theme of this series is what did you say? What are you saying? And what you say has power. In this situation, again, playing that foolish role there, attacking verbally by calling Gilead nothing more than fugitives from Ephraim and Manasseh. Why would they say that when half the tribe of Manasseh was on that side of Gilead? Why would you call them fugitives? And then really what is a fugitive? Because that's not a word that we use a lot in today's vernacular. So the meaning could escape us. Here, a fugitive was someone who was escaping danger. They, either from warfare or judgment or calamity. They were ones who they were escaping. They were like runaways, and that's what they were calling the people, the men of Gilead. You all just runaways from Ephraim and Manasseh. The true portion of Ephraim and Manasseh is on the western side of the Jordan. You all are just some runaways. You try to get away from your responsibility, which that had to hurt the people greatly, because those that settled on the eastern side of the Jordan, being Manasseh, Gad, and Reuben, they still went across the Jordan. Their people still crossed the Jordan and fought with everyone else to secure their land, and then came back. The sacrifice that it took for them to leave their land, to leave their wives, to leave their children, and go and fight for someone else and for their land when they had, some land of their own, but they agreed to do that since they weren't crossing over into the promised land. For them to do that, how many of their ancestors died in that fight? How many of them came back maimed and changed from the years of warfare that they engaged in to help others gain their land? That had to hurt. And then especially for Jephthah, it had to hurt because he was a refugee. Like, he did have to leave Manasseh. He had to leave his homeland because his brothers would not allow him to stay there. And you saying that we're running from a fight? You calling me a coward? The one who came back and led everyone in a fight, the one who was known for his fighting skills, hooked up with a with a gang of thugs and wreck shop. I'm a coward after I just risked my life against Ammon, and you wouldn't help me? Yeah, that would cause me to fight too. Those are fighting words, and that's what happened. And because of those fighting words, Ephraim lost 42,000 men, not just people, but 42,000 men, 42,000 warriors, 42,000 troops, 42,000 people who could defend their city and their families against, wild animals or the attack of raiders or from whatever. Their lives were lost. It's interesting how they went about losing their lives, at least at that point, or many of them, how they lost their lives. Once the men of Gilead start defeating Ephraim, as a wise tactician, Jephthah took the shallow crossing of the Jordan, and there they gave the people crossing a test. Like, are you from Ephraim or not? They said, no, they're not from Ephraim. They had a test for them. So it will say Shibboleth. And the reason I have Chingy here on this picture with his famous song right there is because, like someone from St. Louis, if you ask them to say there, we got that slang. We have our accents, and it sounds different than what everyone else sounds like when they say it. I'll never forget when Nelly and Chingy and everybody was hot back in the early 2000s. I went on a men's trip to a conference, and I think we were in North Carolina, staying at the hotel, playing basketball. Some kids from I don't know where came out and they start playing with us. And I said something to the people that I was with, and I must have used one of the famous St. Louis words, and the kids' jaw just dropped like, oh my goodness, they do really sound like that. And I was like, wow, that was really funny. Um, but how you say what you say matters. Now, for them, it was a cultural thing. They said that the people of Ephraim couldn't say shibboleth. They said sibboleth, which makes me think of how some people mispronounce the word sword or even ambulance. You know, instead of ambulance, they may say ambulance. It's like, okay, no, that's not it. Which that's what they're saying. It's like they don't know how to pronounce the word sword. I know it's a W in it, but that W is silent. It's not sword, it's sword. So the people of Ephraim, they all pronounce the word incorrectly. And because of how they pronounce the word, and because of them lying and saying that they weren't who they were, they lost their lives. It is so very important, not only what we say, but how we say what we say. So often I give an example of someone needing, something of substance. And I'll have it in my hand and I'll take it, and I'll force it in their hands, like, here, take it, take this. You know you need it here. Now, granted, the person very well may need whatever that thing is. But if I'm giving it in a forceful way, the likelihood of them being able to receive it and receive it well is very low. They may take it, but they may despise you for it. They may not take it at all. They may say that they're going to take it and then go and do something else. Because again, how you say what you say matters. Who cares if what you're saying is the truth? The word tells us to speak the truth in love. So again, it matters how you say what you say, not just what it is that you're saying, but the way that it is presented. For Israel, this was the first time that we really see a civil war within the nation. Now, granted, technically, the brothers selling Joseph off was an act of violence within Israel, but nothing had been seen on this scale prior to this. Unfortunately, it wouldn't be the last time that there will be a civil war in the nation. Let's continue on as that ends Jephthah, but doesn't end our chapter. After Jephthah died, Ibzan from Bethlehem judged Israel. Say that 5 times fast. It was really kind of fun to say Ibzan from Bethlehem. Anyway, I digress. He had 30 sons and 30 daughters. He sent his daughters to marry men outside of his clan, and he brought in 30 young women from outside of his clan to marry his sons. Ibzan judged Israel for 7 years. But when he died, when he died, he was buried at Bethlehem. Now, on the image, you see that there's a red dot pointing to the area of Bethlehem. This is Bethlehem in Zebulun, though. It's not stated whether or not Ibzan was a part of the tribe of Zebulun. It doesn't say what tribe he's a part of, which that's important. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. It also does not designate which Bethlehem was being spoken of. The Bethlehem in Zebulun was about 7 miles northwest of Nazareth, just to kind of give you an idea of where it lies in relation to other cities within Israel that we would know about. Again, it was in the land of Zebulun, but we don't know whether Ibzan was from Bethlehem, Judea, which is the one that we think of, and that's the one that is the capital of Israel now, or Bethlehem in Zebulun. Bethlehem in Zebulun was known as a fertile land, and it was known for its agricultural productivity. Um, Bethlehem means house of bread, which that speaks to God's provision for his people. There's a house of bread in the north as well as a house of bread in the south. Like I said, Ibzan's his tribe was not mentioned, and that's kind of important, seeing how things worked. He had a lot of kids, 30 sons, 30 daughters, which shows wealth and prosperity, because you can't have 60 kids and feed all of them and not have the resources to do that. He took those children, though, and though he did not physically kill them, he did sacrifice them for the greater good by giving his daughters in marriage to people outside of his tribe, as well as bringing in others, or I should say, bringing in ladies from other tribes to marry his 30 sons. Often mixed marriages of this nature are done to foster unity and reduce the likelihood of war. There's a name for this. It's called a dynastic marriage or a marriage alliance. Sometimes it wasn't a marriage, but just sending a child to live with the enemy and then taking one of their children and housing them. Those are called hostage diplomacy or peace hostages. And you saw this amongst all kinds of people groups. We're talking about this here with ancient Israel. You saw it in Persia. You saw it in Africa and in other parts of Asia. You saw it in the Americas with the Native Americans. This happened all over the place. And the reason for it was really simple. If my child is there, the likelihood of me attacking is much lower because I risk killing my own child. I love my child. I want to see my child live. I want to see them prosper. I don't want to do anything that may harm them. So I'm not going to attack you for fear that I would also be attacking my child, and vice versa. Now, with all of this intermarriage that took place, we don't see that. That's one thing that's very noticeable about this portion of scripture. You don't see anything about them fighting each other. And that was big because you just had this civil war. You just had this unrest amongst the nation. So having some peace, having some unity was very, very important. And it looks as if what Ibzan did was successful, because you don't see any of that within this. Now, granted, it's only a couple verses, but this is the entirety of the story that we have in regards to Ibzan and his serving as a judge. God and his sovereignty provided that peace, and it was much needed, again, because of everything that they had gone through. One of the things that happened in this for Ibzan, like I said, we don't know what tribe he was a part of. Whatever tribal land he had could possibly have been split up because of the taking of the other wives. And what if the children that were born did not identify as members of Zebulun's tribe, but they identify more with the tribe of their mothers? You know, what would happen? Or, you know, the offspring of the daughters, you know, maybe they, you know, came back, or maybe it was a situation where, you know, someone had only daughters and didn't have a son. You know, what would happen? Kind of like the daughters of Zelophehad. He sacrificed these things for the good of the people. His lineage, his land, all of that was sacrificed, kind of like what Jesus did by coming to earth and living and dying for us. He gave up many of his benefits to inhabit a fleshly body and live amongst us. Ibzan reigned for 7 years. 7 years, or I should say, he judged for 7 years. 7 years is the number of completion. Where Jephthah, he served for 6 years, and that's the number of man. Another important note here before we move on is that generally you don't see peace and wickedness coexisting. Like, I can't really think of a situation where that happens. Where there's wickedness, there's strife. And where there's strife, there is no peace. If you want peace, then you need to gain it by holy and righteous living, because anything else is a false peace. And often, not only does it not last, but you have to do other things to keep up the facade of peace, like being busy all the time, or partaking of different substances and things. Let's continue. After Ibzan died, Elon from the tribe of Zebulun judged Israel for 10 years. When he died, he was buried at Ajalon in Zebulun. Now, we're not talking about Tesla and ex Elon, but this is actually a family name of Zebulun. Like Gilead was a family name, and we spoke of that last week. Just like Gilead being a family name, um, Elon was also the name of an allotment of land. Now, that land allotment was in Dan. It wasn't in Zebulun. Nonetheless, that name went for both places and people. 2 verses. That's all we know about Elon. One thing that we do know and that we see here, which is like what we saw with Ibzan, is you don't see idol worship. You don't see war against anyone. You see a fairly peaceful and uneventful time frame. You add the 10 years that Elon had with the 7 years that Ibzan had, you got 17 years of peace. Again, much needed peace after going through the turmoil of civil war. After Elon died, Abdon, son of Hillel from Pirathon, judged Israel. He had 40 sons and 30 grandsons who rode 70 donkeys. He judged Israel for 8 years. When he died, he was buried at Pirathon in Ephraim, in the hill country of the Amalekites. Abdon, his influence, it reached past his contemporaries. He did not just impact his people and his friends and those that were around him, but his children were involved with riding donkeys. That was a sign of royalty. But not just his kids, but his grandsons as well. So 3 different generations were impacted by Abdon's influence. It's said that abuse is impactful for 4 generations, where he was able, being Abdon, was able to see 3 generations of people thrive because of the things that he did. It's so important to know that what we do is a reflection of our words. Our words have actions, and we say things, but we don't really mean it if we don't do anything. So know that your words, your impact, your life will outlive you. What kinds of things will your grandchildren tell your great grandchildren about? What kinds of stories will they tell? Today, we study the history and the words of people who died thousands of years ago. And we take their words to heart and we live by their words, because our words not only have power, but our words will outlive us, and that impact will outlive us. With that being said, have a couple passages that speak to the power of our words and the power of the lives that we live. Proverbs chapter 13, verse 22 says, "A good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children, but a sinner's wealth is stored up for the righteous." So, as a godly person, you want to look out not just for yourself, and not just do something and provide something for your children, but there should be an inheritance down to your grandchildren. Again, using your words, using your actions to provide these things. In Mark chapter 10, verse 42, this is the passage where, and we talked about this last week, where James and John ask for seats on the left and the right of Jesus in the kingdom. And he was like, "I know what you're asking, but I don't know if you know what you're asking. Are you going to be able to drink the cup of wrath that I will drink? Are you going to be able to be baptized with the baptism of suffering that I have to suffer?" And they were like, "Yes, we can do all that." He's like, "Okay, you're going to do all that, but I can't say who's going to sit on my right or my left." And here he's giving them more information about what it is that they're saying that they want. And really, what they want to do is to be great. They want to be notable. And Jesus is telling them what greatness really looks like. Verse 42. "So Jesus called them together and said, 'You know that the rulers of this world lord it over their people, and officials flaunt their authority over those under him. But among you, it'll be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first among you must be the slave of everyone. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others and to give his life as a ransom for many." So Jesus is giving us the example. If we want to be great, and that word great there in the Greek is megas, which is where we get our word mega from now. So if you want to be great, you want to be mega, you want to be not mega, but mega, you want to be mega, you want to be big, then you need to be a servant. And the word servant here is like a waiter. Like, who aspires to be a waiter? You know, you grow up in at kindergarten, you know, or first grade, where they ask, "Hey, you know what do you want to be to have career day?" You don't hear anyone saying, "Oh, I want to wait tables." Now, granted, you know, depending on how you do things, you know, you can make a living waiting tables, but that's generally something that's done while you're waiting, no pun intended, to do something else. That's not your your overall goal and desire is to wait tables. But that's what Jesus is saying our attitude has to be. We need to be servants, looking to see, hey, what is it that someone needs? What can I do to make their experience better? How can I think ahead of them to make things as comfortable as possible and to ensure that they have the best that they can possibly have? That's what God is calling us to be. And use the word slave, which is a trigger for most African Americans, but this slavery was not the same kind of slavery that our ancestors endured in the Americas. This is more of a bond slave, like working off debt. Now, you don't have any ownership rights uh, in certain forms of slavery, but usually, if you don't have that, it's because you've given it up. One of the better ways of saying is that this is a bond servant, a bond slave. And that term was used with the highest dignity in the New Testament. That was like one of the greatest things that you could be called. And to be that means that you are willingly living under Christ's authority. You're giving over your authority, your rights unto Christ, which he did not forsake all of his rights, but he did forsake a lot of the things that he had the right to do just by allowing himself to be confined in a body for us. Abden was a judge for 8 years, and 8 is a number of new beginnings. When you add all of it up, it's 20 plus years. So it's been a full generation from the torment and the turmoil. Ooh, I don't know what I was going to say. The turmoil of civil war to relatively having peace, as well as a lack of idolatry. All right, closing out key points. It's not just what you say, but it's how you say what you say that matters most. If you have a foul attitude, you think you know better than others, you're just saying it out of spite, you make it hard, if possible at all, to receive. When we speak the truth, we need to speak it in love. Peace and wickedness, they just don't go together. You don't have peace and wickedness, because you can't have peace when you have wickedness present. Know that your words and your actions, the things that you do, will outlive you. That is it for today. When we come together again, the topic will be destination greatness. Until then, God bless and keep it together.